All right, it's 5:31. Let's call the City Council work session to order. This is the Edina City Council in its work session on February 4th, 2026. As I mentioned, it's 5:32 now. And we've got one major topic, continuing conversation about immigration response and some of the things that we've been working on both internally, and I think Scott Neal probably has ability to talk a little bit about the coalition work as well, the public cities, maybe the chief does as well. I'm going to just turn it over. After we call the roll here, we'll have our clerk call the roll and then get the meeting started.
Councilmember Agnew? Here. Councilmember Jackson? Here. Councilmember Pierce? Here. Councilmember Richter? Here. Mayor Huffman?
Here. All right, so we're going to spend the primary time on immigration response, and if we have a little bit of extra time, Jennifer Bennerout's going to take us back through, maybe it's MJ, take us back through a little tutorial on that.
I think Jen is going to kick it up.
Oh, yeah.
You for questions.
We'll have had the benefit of both of your.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Happy to be here.
No. And we need it. We need it. At least I do it. Remedial stuff is good for me.
All right.
All right. Here we go. Scott.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to start out by kind of reminding you where we are today. This is the report. You've got this in front of you that was produced by a group of employees who looked at and vetted a number of ideas that some of which they had, but many of which came from you and came from the community to us. And they did some discussion, evaluation about legal advisability, feasibility, et cetera, effectiveness. Some of those are just a few of the values that they brought to this. But a lot of these people, some of them you know, but I'm guessing a lot of them you don't know. But these are operational people who bring that kind of skill set to this task. And that's what we were looking for, is what could we do? How could we do it? Is there a twist that we could add to something that may not have been allowable, but if we twist it somehow, we could do it. So we looked at it, tried to be creative and look from that. And these are a lot of creative folks that are on our list. And I'm just now realizing I'm pointing at a list that you're not looking at.
That's why we're over your shoulder.
But we're going to show.
I'm going to tell you who they are.
We're going to show you who they are here in a second. But I do want to get started with this. We want to spend as much time as you find necessary to have a good grasp of this. We're going to not only talk about the work that we did as staff, but also an ordinance and a resolution that our city attorney prepared for us to consider tonight if you want to. So why don't we start with MJ?
Yeah, good evening. So you have the report in front of you. So like Scott said, that was actually produced by Scott, myself, and a lot of the recommendations that came from the task force. So it's divided up into 3 sections, and we're kind of going to move through that report tonight. We have a lot of notes that, yes, they're not in front of you. They're basically just our talking points that we want to make sure we talk about tonight, but it's all included in the report. The first section is about the task force, how it was set up, and kind of a little bit about our process. The second section is going to be items that are really for council review. We have 4 of those main items we're going to talk about tonight. That last section is city manager comments on the ideas that the task force reviewed.
And I need to just jump in and
Yep.
tell you that in this document you're seeing some red and you're seeing some blue. And the blue comes from...
Well, the blue are actually hyperlinks, but
Okay.
the red was...
The red is a new comment that I added to this as we kind of continued the iterative process of going back and forth. So you've not seen the red comments until right now.
Yeah, we noticed that this work is not very linear. It's kind of a little bit messy and all over the place. And so as things evolve, we find out new information. We're trying to get that to you as fast as possible. Okay, so without further ado, who is the task force members? So I have a list of all of them. There's 11 total. So it's Abdul Ahmed, who works in public health and our rental inspections. Brian DeReamer, who's at 50th in France. Carl Pearson, who's in IT. Lauren Siebenaller in communications. Nate Morrison,
That's him right there.
who's actually behind us,
Right.
works down at Edinburgh Park. Nemo Omar, who is in human resources. Ryan Schultz, who's also here with us tonight. Stephanie Hawkinson, you all know her. Thomas Brooks, administration, and Zoe Johnson has been helping as well. I think Zoe's here too. So we have a great team put together to work on this work. So this was a task force that was established by the city manager, cross-departmental. We're ad hoc, right? We have a job that we're gonna do. We have a start, beginning, and end. And we were given a role or a charge, and we have been working on assessing existing city policies and practices, trying to identify what the community concerns and needs are. So we've been doing that throughout our conjunction as we've been dealing with some of these other things that are coming to us. Our job is to evaluate those ideas through that legal, operational, and community impact lens. We needed to present the benefits, risks, and unintended consequences behind this report and what you see in a shorter version. Scott has these larger versions of evaluations from the task force members to bring forth those risks and benefits so we can make sure we're making the best decision possible. And that's what we've done. We sent those up to Scott, and we've actually been bringing those forward tonight, and we'll do in the next couple weeks. Our work was organized into 3 focus areas. So we have community resources and support. It's what you expect. Our businesses are under there. We're also thinking about our multifamily, some of our condo owners or homeowners associations, city regulations and protections. So some of those policies that we have in place, like Scott always says, like, what are the things we can do, right? Or can we do something just a little bit different? Does it make sense for us to do that? And then a large portion fell into that public safety and policing, and we will spend a lot of time on that topic tonight. So the task force. So the first thing we had to do, we have 45 items that came at us, right? And our list felt like it was growing, not shrinking. So we needed a way to figure out how to organize the work fast. Like I said, it wasn't linear. So we triaged our items. We put them into 3 categories. Green were the feasible within our existing authority. Like we knew right away, like through our operations, we probably could do something with the greens. Yellow was requiring further research, discussion, or legal review. And red, we felt like we're outside city authority or not feasible. So we actually decided to eliminate those from our list. We're not through the list. I should tell you that tonight, is that what you're gonna see, we still have some things that are in the list that we're working on. We did make it into yellow, but we made it primarily through all of the green ones. We kept the ideas in their original form because we don't want to lose the intent. So you will see them and sometimes it feels like, is there a word missing there? Because that's just how the information came to us. So we kind of kept them in the original form. And then some of the recommendations were administrative. We did our evaluations. We brought them to Scott. We've been able to kind of implement some things, and you'll hear about a few of those things tonight. The ones that rise to the city council level, though, those are the ones that we have 4 in front of you for tonight. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause between all these sections to make sure if you guys have questions. And we, of course, there'll be moments for discussion, but any questions about the first section and the task force?
So you mentioned that for those that were in the red category, you removed from the list.
Yep.
Would it be possible for us to still get a summary of what those items were? And then, I'm not trying to add work, but even just like a quick 1
I
sentence
already have the report.
explanation.
It's already written.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we can email it to them?
Sure.
Does that work?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my question too.
And
Yeah,
I
like
will-
what makes it not feasible?
Yeah, and yeah, we haven't got through all the yellow yet, but there is like one that's on there, and we'll get into the eviction moratorium that we actually did triage red, and then we'll tell you what our rationale was behind that and actually what we shifted to. But you will see that one on the red list, but we are still talking about that tonight, right? Because that really is a council level decision.
And it's just important because we're hearing from community members, and if
Yep.
they don't know why, or if something even got weighed,
100%.
we're gonna keep sending it to you.
Yep,
So we need to have the whole picture.
that makes sense.
Our plan is also to update the FAQs on the website with some of those, like, you know, at the last council meeting, some people asked some direct questions. Will you do this? Will you do that? If the answer is no, we should ask that question and say no and why.
Great question.
And,
Anything else?
how are we making it possible for people to let the task force know that they're spotting ice in different places? You know, because I'm hearing about that.
Yep. We're gonna get to that too.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions about the task force? Okay, perfect. All right, so these next 4 items are really for city council review, so it's probably where we'll spend the majority of our time today. I will provide the task force recommendations and any important findings regarding the ideas that were sent to us that we reviewed. And then we're gonna do a little bit of popcorn. Ryan and Chief Milburn are gonna help with some of these items as well. We're gonna start on, the first one, which is titled Regulatory Signage or City-Owned Property. As you all know, you all received lots of feedback of interest in this topic, and we had it on our list as well, and so we did review, this item. We also looked at other cities. We looked at Burnsville, Roseville, and Richfield, and here's kind of what our findings are. So while there are some benefits as well, I'm just gonna bring out what we found, potential risks. These signs largely are symbolic. The city's ability to enforce compliance is limited, and that is recognized by the other cities. We did speak with them. Our concern with not being enforceable was the fear of breaking trust with the public, and we do have an example we can share. And we got some mixed out, some feedback, right? The experience that other cities had is a little bit mixed. I can only speak for the one that I actually participated in a meeting with, and then Ryan has an example as well. But Burnsville, feedback was, they noticed once they put the signs up that there was an increase in activity. So whether that's verified or not, I can't say, but that was just something, feedback that was provided in a meeting. And then there was another situation in Richfield.
Yeah, from a law enforcement standpoint, Richfield officers got dispatched to ICE in a parking lot. The officer went and had a conversation, said, "Can you move along?" They didn't. The person they called was standing there, and now the officer was stuck in the middle of, "This person, why can't you do anything?" He's explaining, "I can't enforce the sign." He's saying he's here on a legal immigration detail. I can't kick him out of the park. So it put that officer in a position where they're stuck in the middle, and now I feel, what do you do with that, right? Like, does the officer just leave? Does that create more, where's the trust? You put up the sign, how come you're not enforcing it? We're in a weird spot in the police department because typically we can enforce those things. And now we're in a weird dynamic of people call us to go enforce ordinance and statute, and certain things we can't, right? So that happened on Saturday this weekend with Richfield, and so they're kind of in an interesting spot right now.
And their sign just went up last week.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you our recommendation, but keep in mind, right, that, this is for your guys' consideration, so if council wants to proceed, we know that, and we are happy to comply. But Scott and the task force, we came to the same conclusion of not really recommending this as an option. From the task force's perspective, we just didn't feel like there was enough data for us. We couldn't confirm or didn't have enough verified times when ICE activity was happening on our city-owned property. We had some speculations, but we really didn't have any concrete information. A couple, right? We can verify a couple. And you'll see in section 3, so Julie, this goes to your point a little bit, or the question, the task force was really asked to investigate tracking 911 calls, which we actually did implement, but that's what we were looking for. We're like, can we get more data to see if maybe there's some targeted areas or there be places that would make sense for the signage if we truly were having an issue of a misuse of the property, et cetera. So that's what we erred on. And then with the hope that maybe that would help us make a decision. However, with that said, it's time for discussion.
Go ahead. There are no residents on the task force?
There are not residents on task force.
Okay.
In order for this task force to move at this pace and actually get through a lot of these items, it would have been really challenging to do it with community members to participate.
I feel from like an application perspective as well as
Vetting.
I'm sure the amount of time you're spending as
We-
paid staff.
We are meeting at least twice a week with full meetings plus several side meetings plus it's a good portion of some of our days.
I asked just because we're kind of in between
Mhm.
the community and you.
Yep.
And so hearing the statement, now I can't remember, we can't afford, well, just the dialogue around the signs, like this really would not necessarily improve things. But we're hearing from residents saying, those signs would make me feel safe. So just how do we create a situation where the task force can at some point interface with the public so that what you are telling them or us can be directly told to them instead of through us?
Yep.
We can do that, but I think it would be more effective coming from the task force.
Yeah.
Although we view you as the representative of the community, people picked you to make those decisions. We're we're just talking about the operational effectiveness. That's important, but it's also the community values and concerns are important too. So if you tell us to put these signs up, we will, because you want them to reflect, community values.
So, one of the things I've been thinking about, I was on a call with other cities last week, and they talked about the police having two tools. One is a camera, and the other is de-escalation training. So I'm gonna talk a lot about that. But as you're talking, I'm thinking, we have Edina 311. If you see a pothole or something that's not working, you punch in Edina 311. Could we have a sign in the park that said, if you see ice here, call this number to report it so we can have evidence of what's happening in our city?
So still a sign.
Still a sign.
Acknowledging, giving them a route, but not strictly banning
Yes.
necessarily.
Yeah,
And not all signs that are being put up actually say ice is not, like calling it specifically the ice is.
Yeah.
It's more talking about the intention of the usage of the space.
yeah.
So if you're observing that the space is not being used the way that we're saying it is, that's what the cities are using for signage language.
But something for information gathering rather than for law enforcement.
Yes, so that was second on our list. I just actually thought of Edina 311 while I was laying in bed last night. I said, hey,
You
maybe that is a
projected
way,
it.
because Carl had this idea of using like a phone triage line, and we've seen that Richfield has like an email, but I realized that we already have like a report a problem type of software, so that was part of our discussion tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Yeah.
So I think that, puts people on notice that we're aware.
For sure.
We appreciate their input and their concerns, and we're doing something. We're just not going to create this weird.
Yep. The only thing is we'll have to acknowledge is that the information that comes through 311, we still may not be able to verify if there was activity. Because sometimes that activity happens so quickly that before we can even get there, it's already happened and gone.
The other thing you have to look at is data practices. There's data practices for 911 calls, and I don't know if they're probably different for 311 calls. So if people call in and say, I want to report ice here, but I don't want my name or my information being used, well, they can not give it, but if they give it, it may be public data. So you should probably have some kind of warning about that.
There's two things. It actually can be anonymous, I'm pretty sure. It can be anonymous, and two, it does not. While it's public data, it doesn't necessarily show up on the site publicly as well. So we wouldn't be like offering like, I don't know what to say, like a map of sightings or activity that community members believe happened.
Hey, MJ, will you just added, one of the concerns that you talked about earlier was the idea of like giving people a false sense of safety, and like that it's, with temperatures getting warmer, we're probably gonna see more people using parks. So the idea of the signs also maybe making someone think that they might be safe in that space when maybe they're not.
Yeah, so that was kind of to your point, like, that's what the desire, right? That's where it's value-based, where that's coming from and why people think that. But again, if they enter that space thinking that ice can't enter and ice does, that also can be an activity that happens without our knowledge, us being able to do anything about, or even attempting to try to enforce it.
Well, I think let people know that we are hearing them.
Yep.
That's as far, not to say we're gonna fix it, but that we hear you and we want you to tell us what you're seeing.
Yep.
That's an interesting idea, because the signage is directed at residents, not necessarily, for people who use the park, not necessarily to the agents.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I like that idea. I am a part of a couple of rapid response signal networks, and I assume most of us maybe get in there when someone sees ice, like they let people know, they might send a photo or whatever. So a couple of things. We should not give people a false sense of security, nor a false sense of action. And so while I like the idea of call 311 if you see ice there, however we would word that, we're not going to do anything about it. And so I struggle with that. If we're not gonna actually, and we can't legally tell ICE when you can't do what you're doing, then I don't wanna create a false sense to the community that we're actually doing something, because we're not. And so then the flip side is, and I like the idea. I would be challenged with a generic sign that says, you see activity here that shouldn't be, call 311. Like, we gotta be careful how we word that, because I do remember with race and equity years back, someone complained that a neighbor called the police because someone who was black, male, was suspicious in the neighborhood. And the police looked into that, right? This person had just moved into the neighborhood. So talk about welcome to the neighborhood. And so I would be nervous about that, depending on how we word it, because it's so subjective. And then the last thing I'd say, I appreciate, you see this in these chats too. Man, Richfield just did this. Here's their sign. How come Edina can't do that?
Yeah.
And so there is this awareness piece where I think people just don't understand what is having an impact and what's not.
The task force did acknowledge too that Richfield is a different community than Edina as well, so what they're seeing is a little bit different, or at least what they're reporting.
Yeah,
Please.
as we started tracking 911 calls related to ICE, because we dispatched Richfield, we're tracking their data too, and they are significantly more calls than what we've seen. I think we're at 4 or 5, with a couple of them not being related to ICE at all. Total, since we started, was that Thursday? So, as a task force, when we look at that, that's kind of where we came from. If we could gather more data to find out if it is a problem or where, that if we could target an area or some education between it. But Richfield is a different community. They are having a lot more calls. And that's what we're encouraging the public. If they're suspicious, feel unsafe, call 911 and we'll respond out and help as we can. And so luckily, ours are significantly less than Richfield.
Dave, what are you seeing down in some of the other cities you represent, like Burnsville?
Well, Burnsville, I asked about that last Friday and said, and I asked the attorney and not the police department, but he said they've had a few incidents since they put up the signs where ICE has come on the property, staff has documented that, ICE has eventually left. There's not been any kind of big confrontation, but if anybody's watching to see whether the signs are strictly enforced, I think the answer is honestly no. So, and I don't know whether the signs are prompting the activity or if it would have happened either way. I mean, there's some danger that, some ICE guys may see that and decide to intentionally violate the sign to see what you might do about it. Yeah.
So I have an esoteric response, maybe too esoteric, and that is the sign is, we are gathering evidence about the ICE activity in our community. If you see ICE here, call 311. And just say that's what we're doing. We're gathering evidence. And I don't know if it's useful for anything, but.
Because I think at a certain level, right, we've gotten a lot of requests and people want to see action. And they want, at least what I'm hearing is, they want us to resist and be visible in that resistance. And so I think it's helpful to understand, like, what are some of the complications and maybe what are some of the nuances of how can we create a sign that still is symbolic in nature and doesn't overcommit us or make people think a certain action will be taken, but still shows kind of that vision of we are resisting.
I'm with you on that. So if residents want to see us resisting, then go to the protest and say, as city council, we're gonna show up at 50th and France Mondays, 4:30 to 5:30.
But we won't be talking to each other.
And we're gonna protest. We're with you, right? And keep sharing information with us as you see ice. Like, people are, I learned this, oddly enough, meeting with the Transportation Commission, how important it is to not put up signs and give people a false sense of safety in their case. And so we can do that too. We can go to 50th in France. We can say, hey, we're gonna go protest. Be arm in arm with the residents. They do it every Monday, so we can alternate. We can be out there. I saw Lorraine out there last time.
Oh.
Yeah, so, I think there's lots of ways we can demonstrate to people that we're doing something.
The emails we're getting from some people are, they're afraid to use the parks because they see ice staging up or just maybe sitting there waiting for further direction. So this really doesn't help with any of that.
No.
So I don't know.
I do
mean,
like
would
the
we-
collecting information though. If they see that, let us know and then.
Yeah, but I mean, would Ryan drive out there? I mean, if we had signage up, would you drive out there to see what they're up to? And have a conversation with them about, hey, fellas, you know, can you go sit somewhere else and have a smoke?
Yeah, I think that's where we get put
Can you
in
go to
this
Richfield?
horrible spot is, one of the concerns is too is, I think some people are maybe assuming someone's with ICE that's using a park to take a lunch break. There's a car sitting there, or someone rented a car, and then we're now going out there and having a conversation with someone, and I'm just trying to eat my lunch. Our fear more is getting in the middle of, if an ICE agent refuses to identify themselves and leave, we're caught in the middle of, we're not getting in a confrontation and we can't fight against them. And it puts us in a bad spot, and it really breaks that trust that we want from the community of, we're here to help. I like some of the ideas of collecting the data. We could maybe even do that without even needing to sign the parks on some of our communication plans that we're working on, driving people to use 311 or some type of method to collect that data and then come back and go, how much are we seeing of it? And if we're finding out that maybe Pamela Park is a popular spot for them, or we're getting a lot of complaints about that, look at that independently and see where we can, you know, maybe it's 4 o'clock every day. We can then maybe meet them out there at 4 o'clock without a sign and say, can you go somewhere else? The task force brought up, our concern was, if they're using a park right now that no one's using, is probably better than maybe Southdale's parking lot or Target, where more residents are gonna feel uneasy wondering why they're sitting in the back of a Target parking lot or that. So we kind of threw a bunch of ideas around of, if we push them out of, they're gonna go somewhere. If we push them out of maybe a quiet park, is that gonna create more uneasy for the community in a more visible location?
The only thing I need to keep in mind is that as the weather gets nicer, right, the usage of our parks is gonna shift. And so there could be an incentive of people feeling uncomfortable in those spaces or feeling like they can't use it because other things are happening in there.
Excuse me.
Jason, what I'll just add as well, in a couple of months, not only are our residents be using our parks, but at some of the larger ones, we're gonna have a lot of non-Edina visitors, right? So when you think about all of our associations as partners in our parks, they are gonna start scheduling their games, their scrimmages. Now they're gonna be inviting residents from outside of Edina that are going to be coming in. So they may not get that same communication that we communicate to our residents, so it should be clear and forthcoming about what those expectations are when they do arrive. If they're coming from St. Louis Park, Richfield, wherever they be coming from, that may be their first visit to Edina.
And are
So
those
we've been-
registered? Or just impromptu or both?
Councilor Pierce has an example at Pamela Park when, say, soccer club will be using that in approximately probably 6 weeks, when you think about where we'll be, hopefully, or otherwise. they will be bringing in, you know, Tonka United, Hawkins Dynamo. We don't schedule those, they do. So we'll be permitting soccer club, we'll be permitting Edina Baseball Association, Girls Fast Pitch Association. They then were inviting those teams. So now we lose another layer of communication to those guys that are coming in.
Yeah, so this idea of being visible to the residents, that we're protecting their constitutional rights to do what they are doing, that feels right to me. That if we have a group that is permitted to go to a park, and we know they're there every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, I actually don't have any issues with sending an officer there during that event to make sure that our residents can exercise their constitutional rights, whether ICE is there or not. Like, those kinds of, that feels more resident-focused, honestly, than putting up a sign that says ICE is not wrong. And so I get this as nuance, but I'm just giving you how I visualize it. I interrupted you.
What do you do, you know, like, sometimes when I come home from work, I'm going up 66th Street past Roslyn, and sometimes late at night, there's cars out in the parking lot just east of the school. It's dark. You know, what are you doing out there? You know? You guys check that out once in a while when you see cars there, or late at night parked there? Or,
Absolutely.
you know, you go over there and see, hey fellas, what's up, you know?
Yep. So part of their routine patrols as they're going through, especially after parks are closed, they'll go communicate with them. No different than if a vehicle was there and it was after hours. If it happened to be ICE, it'd be the same contact of someone there.
Swing in there and say, what's up? And they say, oh, Border Patrol.
Much of what I've been sharing with community presentations has been around, our officers are skilled in triaging and identifying 911 calls that come in, but no 911 call is the same. They're always different. And so as a default, we tell people you can absolutely call 911 if you're just unsure about what's going on, and you should continue to do that, right? What we're trying to guard against is using us, kind of back to what you were saying, as a tool. We can be used as a tool from a lot of different things that might happen out there. And we're trying to guard against that because we are capped at what we can and can't do as it relates to the federal government.
Sure. But I'm thinking, even if if somebody called and kind of track on Carolyn's idea, a couple different things. You know, if you were gonna put up signage, I'd like to put up something that stays there. That we don't waste a bunch of money on. ICE can't park here, you know, but I like this Rosa one that says, parking for park users only. You know, so that could be up there forever. Because that's what we want, using those parking lots, or park users. And then call 911 or 311 if you see anything suspicious.
Okay, just to be clear, Edina 311 is an app, it's not a phone line.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
so call 911 if you see anything suspicious.
If you dial
That aligns better with 911 anyway.
What, can I ask, just from a resource standpoint, because I kind of like this idea too. We're just trying to thread a needle. From a resourcing standpoint, when officers are on patrol, how challenging would it be to rotate through, I'll just say the larger or more visible parks, you know, just to check them out?
Well, it depends, and it depends on call volume, time of day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables there, so we wouldn't be able to commit to a standard structured schedule. Every Wednesday, we'll be there from certain hours of the day.
No, just to
But
drive through.
but casually, throughout the patrol, yeah, that happens all the time.
Already it happens.
Already.
Because, like, that's another option, is we're talking about messaging to the residents that we're here to protect your constitutional right to use your resources as they are. To say, we're patrolling these, I'm gonna call them bigger parks, I don't know how you figure out which ones. And we go through there, I'm totally making this up, so you have to correct it. On a shift, these 4 or 5 parks, we get through there to just casually patrol 3 times a shift. And if we see anything, ICE activity, suspicious activity or whatever, we will address it. Something like that.
That is baked into our daily operational flow.
But nobody knows about it. And so that's the thing. So it's us saying, we're here to protect your constitutional right to use these parks in a safe, however you word it, the way they're intended to. And every day, we go by these parks 3 or 4 times to make sure that that is the case. And if we did something like that, you could actually put in there. You could then say ICE activity, this kind of activity, whatever kind of activity that is not congruent with park use, we're there. And if you see anything related to this, call us and we'll sweep through.
I don't think the police have the ability to say, I drove by the park and saw ICE there, because that's intelligence gathering.
No,
Is
we're
that-
tracking that.
You're tracking that, okay. I'm dating myself.
I mean, like, if we have a call related to any kind of interaction with ICE, we are asking our officers to document it in our CAD system, so we're currently doing that, yes.
But are you gathering data that is not responsive to a call?
Proactive.
Oh, like proactive
Yeah.
if they didn't talk to them or they thought they saw an ICE car? No, we are
If
not.
you're going to my house and you happen to go by Walnut Ridge Park and you see ICE there, are you and I have no idea because I can't see the parking lot from my house. You're not making because that's intelligence gathering that I think is frowned upon for lots of reasons. But that's why we want to encourage people to call 911 if they see something that makes them worried, because then you have a reason to go out there. But the proactive kind of stuff, for a lot of reasons, is not a good idea.
Yep, unless it's part of some type of criminal activity or a suspicious call or in the park
Right.
after hours.
There have been jewelry robberies in this neighborhood, so we're going to drive through and see if we see someone with a black bag and a mask, you know?
And if it's helpful for all of you, and we may be talking about this a little bit later on, we're doing kind of public safety statements and videos, and we're sharing that on social media, so we're hitting on some of these points already, and like these things can be incorporated in over time as we go through the various experiences as well.
That reminds me, I'm getting quite a few positive comments about your statement from last week from residents. Yeah, really pleased with what you said.
We're likely to keep that going.
Yeah.
But
That was a real confidence builder, I think.
But again, to put a finer point on it, member Agnew, member Risser, they both said we're hearing residents want us to be, what did you call it, visible or resisting. And so if we're doing things that we can leverage in that way, but nobody knows about it, then we might as well not be doing it from their perspectives.
Right.
So I think it's wise for us, if there are things that we're already doing, that we can incorporate and clarify to the community, actually, this is what we do and how we do it and why we're doing it, and it is for these reasons. That's a good thing to do, because it doesn't cost us resources to do it.
Could we somehow message, because I'm hearing from, some people saying they're afraid to go to the parks. Other people, it's not that they're afraid for themselves, but they're afraid for their neighbors. Is there a way we could message to encourage residents to go out and be in the parks during times when they're more used? The ones who feel not afraid, just to be there to help others maybe feel more comfortable? Kind of have more people in the park?
Is there a liability to that? I don't know.
Hasn't come up in the task force.
No. I mean, because right, again, we're very cold weather, and so there's not as many people in our parks right now.
Yeah, and I
There-
think if we don't know that that's actually a problem, should we, I don't know, activate around that?
Right, I'm just thinking of people who are really wanting to do something, and it could be, as it gets warmer, a viable, like, go, be present, help us, help with the resistance or whatever.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that could organically happen, but I don't know if we should be the ones saying to do it.
Okay.
More eyes and more activity in the park, though, that's a good thing.
and recreation standpoint, we're gonna start messaging the benefits of parks during this time. So not just about, the presence of ice, but more around where people are at after a lot of these tragic events, about getting sunshine, getting fresh air, getting active, moving with, your social circles. So that was what we just discussed yesterday about trying to promote the positivity of parks during this time and how we're there for you. We are open for skating, we are open for this, we are open for walking. So trying to get people to coalesce around the physical, mental, and social benefits of parks during this time, which I think as a byproduct, the more eyes you have in a park, the more you'll be comfortable to.
I like this idea too. What's the saying, darkness can't exist in light, something like that. And we don't have to overprescribe it, but we're getting involved as a council. I don't think there's anything wrong with messaging to residents. Enjoy your parks. And get out there, be present. We don't have to say, it drives ice out.
No, but I mean, the more people, yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Get a little, give some little park patrol badges.
You could have the,
Park patrol.
you could do the, where you have a park passport and you get a stamp for every park you go to in Edina. I mean, that's a thing, and it's just a very basic.
If there's somebody here to mark it.
Well, if there's a little, you don't have to actually have that.
Okay.
Because you can just have
Honor
a little,
system.
Yep.
yeah, like a stamp thing.
So we still have the 3 other things to get through.
Oh, thank you, Kate.
Do we want to take any action on signs, or do we want to message to the community that we thought about it, and here's the reason that we're electing not to?
I was just trying to think through a sequence, is that if we had signs that said, parking lot limited to, use by park facility users only, or something to that effect, parking for facility users only, call 911 if you see anything suspicious. Those are signs we could have forever.
Yeah.
And then if somebody called, they were nervous, they were down at the park, ice pulled in to have a sandwich down at Roslyn Park in the parking lot. And people just, they were close enough so it made people nervous. If they called 911, we'd go. We would go out there and we'd engage ice. That might be enough to just calm people down right there. And we'd probably interact with the people that called. Really? And then we might just go on our way. So maybe,
And then there'd be
you
a
know, I
record
mean,
of
we
it.
would park, facility parking should be for park users only anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and we don't have any signage up like that, do we?
Typically, it's, rules and or hours.
Yeah. Say that again?
Just general park rules and our hours of operation. Hours of operation on all of our park signs.
So I'm with this idea, but I don't know about the wording, because park use, that's what ICE is doing, they're using the park. And so like, I don't know if it's, I think one of you might have said something like appropriate use or
Well, we
something
can,
like that.
if you want
Or,
kind
you
of
know,
evergreen
yeah,
advisory signage that focuses on parking and park use, we can run that through our, we can run it through the plain language, we can look at legal. These are signs we're gonna make in our sign shop, so we can make them say anything we want. But we'll talk to the sign making guys too, to see how it works. It takes, what did we think, like
About a week, yeah.
Yeah, about a week. They gotta call in the gopher underground check, that kind of, just when they pound a stake into the ground, it's winter, that may not be easy in some cases, but if that's the kind of signage and direction you're giving us, we can put that together.
And then I think what the tip-off is for our residents is that it says if you see anything suspicious, call 911. Well, we'd want them to do that whether ICE was here or not.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like that term of suspicious in there, because then we're not getting in the middle of
Right.
an ordinance, a non-criminal or a non-ordinance, right? So if they're calling in and saying, this is suspicious, or whatever, we can go respond. If they're calling in for something that's not an ordinance or statute, well, this car is just parked in the lot, it puts us in a spot. So I think that, see something, say something, works good.
Okay.
I don't like suspicious, but you'll figure it out.
It just, from my perspective, again, not an advantage, but I would assume the council's preference would be that we work with a lot of our partners on this. So when you think about, we don't own at a couple of our parks that are in conjunction with schools. So we think of Creek Valley, Cornelia.
Yep.
Some of our parking lots are actually the underlying property is the school. Or like at Centennial Lakes Park in Edinburgh, where we have great concerns. We actually don't own those ramps, so we would have to work with those partners in those areas. I'm assuming the council would want us to go that route as well.
Where possible.
I'd like
Got
to
it.
know what Lisa's ideal sign. Okay.
We'll steal some ideas from other people.
Yeah. They'll do a resolution too. You know, you can just direct this. It could be part of a press release from Jennifer too.
Okay.
We're gonna sign all the part.
This shouldn't be an isolated thing, is my point of everything I've said, right? It's not just the sign. There's all these other things that we're already doing. And so I think messaging that somehow and making sure people know it is a good thing. That's all.
So we are in a lot of process for some of those communication strategies. We'll show you a couple of them. We've been noticing there are probably things we could have been doing this whole time. And like we learned from COVID, we'll probably start something now and find out that it's great, like the public safety spotlight, and keep going with that for the community as well.
I have to say too, I think we were doing some communication work in December when a lot of our other cities weren't. And then we stopped doing it because we had just done a bunch of it. And then they started up and then people began to notice more and why aren't we doing it? So that's part of what's happened on the community relations
And the world
side.
is constantly changing too, so what was really relevant at the beginning of December wasn't on January 15th, you know, things changed.
I've been messaging about the banner on our homepage and really encouraging people and then cutting and pasting the language from that. And I've found that is very effective, and I tend to get a response that says, thank you so much. And so I think, you know, responding to residents, acknowledging their concerns, but also letting them know what we're doing.
And then it's very.
And I do like the banner, I just want to say, so I am spreading the word about the banner.
All right, anything else on that topic? Do you need to talk about any of the two other handouts we handed out related to this or no?
Not right
Okay.
now. Yeah.
Keep going.
Let's keep going.
All right.
Maybe we could do a little, I was just thinking about this, in Detroit Lakes for years, maybe in Monoman too, they always had a bunch of guys that would start a betting pool on when the ice would be out.
That's a great idea.
Something the city probably
Yeah.
does.
That was not an idea on our list. No? We're not adding that one.
Add the charitable gambling.
Yeah.
That's item 46.
Yeah. Next year. Okay, so we had another idea that came to us, welcoming statement or a resolution, specific to the council making a statement. As Scott had mentioned, we have done a couple things in communication in December. But we did not actually spend a lot of time on this one. We just really felt like we would just bring this up to city council because it's up to you guys if you want to do some type of welcoming statement or resolution. The only thing, that we will, caution or the risk is depending on the language, the resolution could risk some funding if we were like seen as designated as sanctuary city. So we just wanted to bring that, forward to this group before you make a decision on that as well.
And Dave, this is the part of what this resolution that you shared with them is,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, this wasn't, I hadn't sent this to you when this point on the report was created, but this is a resolution that says ICE is not welcome in Edina. So, and not because I drafted it, but I think this would be effective probably as much or more than signs in the parks. This is a citywide resolution that you can publicize anywhere you want, including not just parks. So it's hopefully an effective way to make a statement if that's what you want to do.
Well, what's the statement we're trying to make?
Isn't that, yeah, exactly. And didn't the mayor, didn't you have a statement about how we weren't against lawful immigration. I mean,
Enforcement.
exactly, so how does that butt up against, it, I don't know.
Well, this prohibits the use of city resources.
Yeah, right, no, that I'm totally.
So that's not saying immigration action isn't allowed. It's saying we can't use city resources to support it.
Right, and I totally get that.
What do you mean?
The statements are on, they're 1 through 4, I guess they're on the last couple pages.
You look at the resolution of the ordinance.
Sorry, I was looking at
The resolution.
stewardship of city resources.
The resolution.
The ordinance.
There's both, so sorry about the confusion. There's an ordinance and a resolution.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the resolution.
Okay.
Affirming community values and stewardship of city resources amidst immigration enforcement operations.
And there's, admittedly quite a lot of whereas clauses, but the statements that you'd be making, obviously subject to your revisions, are at the bottom of,
Second page.
yeah, items 1 through 4 at the end of the document.
Of the resolution.
So, Dave, do you think this keeps us out of concern of being labeled a sanctuary city and losing funding?
No, I don't think, if you pass this, I think you risk losing funding and you risk being categorized as a sanctuary city. So you'd have to be willing to take that risk.
I am.
I just don't think that's right. And so just to be provocative, I don't have any issue with ICE at all. It is, what they're doing is legal enforcing immigration.
Oh, you have the existence of ICE,
Right, with the existence of ICE.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is, I feel like they're violating people's constitutional rights.
Yeah.
And so, this resolution, so the first one,
You can pick and choose on these.
the first one says, Edina condemns any immigration enforcement operation that violates the constitutional rights of people.
Yeah.
Check, right, so that, to me, that needs to be the focus. If ICE came in and they weren't doing what they're doing today, and they were following the law and not violating people's constitutional rights.
You could change the language a little bit. You could say Edina supports immigration enforcement operations that observe or honor the constitutional rights of people.
I like this phrasing more that's in here.
The first one,
Yeah.
The second one, city does not
second part of it doesn't
participate in
hang
immigration enforcement operations or enforce federal immigration law. We did not govern immigration laws. Right, that's out of our control. It's like the gun laws, right? So like that makes sense to me. But I just think we have to underscore the reason we have these issues is the unconstitutional piece of it. Like that should be littered over everything.
I mean, I think that's what a lot of these whereas clauses cover, right?
So if we take 4 out, does that change the nature of it?
Well, if you're asking me whether officers in the federal government will try to characterize you as a sanctuary city, I think they'll go as far as they can in trying to characterize you that way.
Yeah.
So,
So can we quantify?
Yeah, so Kate asked me earlier this week, what do we have for federal resources in our 2026 budget? I talked to the finance director. She could pinpoint that number to be around between $693,000 and $694,000. Most of that, interestingly, is ARPA and I think ARPA, not CARES money, but ARPA money at this point. that's waiting for, it's waiting for the recipient to do the action that we gave them the money for. So that's what most of that is, but there's some other smaller pots of federal money we get. That is $693,000 in a $220 million spending, right? So it's a relatively small percentage. We just heard from the mayor that we might, we've been selected to get $600,000 more. I could presume that would be tied up in a sanctuary city sort of issue, if it could be, if that's where the feds are going with this.
Maybe that one's not ready quite yet.
Yeah.
It needs a little work if you do want to pass some things, so we can consider the next one.
My concern though is I don't want to wait until we meet again in 2 weeks. Like, we already started this conversation, and I'm not trying to belittle any of the progress that the task force has made. Like, I think it's incredibly impressive how quickly you rallied and how meticulously you pulled together evaluation of 45 different actions. And it feels like we haven't done anything for 2 weeks, right? You can see how that perception would exist within people in the public. So that's why I want to do something. The sign part, that at least does feel like some action, but I don't love the idea of just saying, we're gonna continue to wordsmith this and end up with something for us to then come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I don't have an issue with that, but approving this doesn't do anything. So I would rather us put the signs up, have a campaign that tells residents, here's all the things that we're doing to protect our constitutional rights. If assign us, like 50th in France every Monday, do that. We're your city council, if you want to. When we put the signs up, Scott, we should all go out there to plant those signs, right? And this is why we're here. We're here to protect our residents. We can do all of that. Is more impactful than this resolution, in my opinion, because it's visible action and it's us getting out and doing what people elected us to do. That's just how I view it.
There is go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was gonna say, there is an argument that this is a bit stale already. You know, because I think people know from the communications we've released so far, we're interested in protecting local people and property. That's our job. We don't do immigration work. I mean, everybody knows that, I think, in town now. We don't help them. They don't call us to tell us they're coming to town, where they're gonna be, ask us to be there to back them up. I think everybody knows that. So I'm just wondering if we, to James's point, do we really need to be saying this, or is there some way to say this without jeopardizing federal funding streams?
Well,
And I hate to do that, and think about that in the sense of, you don't really want your values getting rubbing up against your financial interests, you know?
yeah.
And have your financial interests dominate, but for some cities, they have to.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about, the whole thing is we want ICE to go away, right? We want them to go away and stop terrorizing people. Okay, if they're legally enforcing federal immigration laws, that's what they're there to do. They're doing a lot worse than that. And we want the bad stuff to stop. Other city councils have issued statements. And I think we should have a statement that we make tonight, and I don't know if we, cobble something together in the next hour, that we do by 10:45 or whenever Sharon has estimated we're gonna be out of here. So if we knew that putting our federal money at risk would make a difference and make the bad stuff stop, I would do it. But if all it's gonna do is just further penalize us and not make the bad stuff stop, then I just don't. I want it to be, what we do to be effective.
Well, you've seen, we know that this is your instinct. Retribution reigns supreme here.
Yeah, exactly.
You mouth off like the chief of police in Brooklyn Park and there are 3 times as many guys up there working for people to pick up.
Well-
There were the day before.
So you have already joined, at least submitted an amicus brief. You've not joined as a party to the lawsuit, but you've submitted an amicus brief in the lawsuit between the city of Minneapolis, the city of St. Paul, and the state of Minnesota, asking for reduction in ICE activities and curtailing any ICE activities which are unconstitutional.
Is that the one we're in, or is that the only one we're in on an amicus basis?
Correct.
Okay.
I thought we had missed it. There was a provision that we were late, but we got in, right?
Yeah, we negotiated a deal to get in after the motion had been argued, but before the judge had ruled. So it's kind of an unusual, I'm surprised we were allowed to do that, but we were, so we got in.
Is that the one Gustafson's did the work on? Gustafson Glick? You know? I just have been having a dialogue with him this afternoon.
Well, I mean, it was a bunch of attorneys from.
It's a so-called Minneapolis lawsuit?
Well, it was from the Minneapolis City Attorney's Office, the St. Paul City Attorney's Office, the AG's office, and the Solicitor General. They may have engaged some outside private law firms as well, but it was definitely attorneys from those in-house
Yeah.
public legal
Suburban
departments.
prosecutors, right?
Yeah, and well, so those are the parties in the lawsuit. And then, yeah, the suburban prosecutors, which is what we joined, those are all private law firms that represent cities on a prosecution basis.
Can we click on the immigration help button? Because what you just said, Attorney Kendall, I think, so going to immigration help, and there is a statement about us being part of that. And I think we, residents do want us to be doing something, and we are doing something. I thought I saw it on their latest news, if we keep scrolling.
What do you want?
View all
View all news, okay. Because cities are gonna be doing things, and we're gonna be hearing, why aren't you doing it? But we're doing things, and so what if we messaged more about that instead of, trying to keep up in exactly the same way other cities have? Does that make sense?
Could I add to that? as
Yeah,
well?
please.
So in here, under number 2, it talks about what our scope of work is. We do have a policy in the police department already on the books that speaks to our role as it relates to immigration enforcement, that we don't do it, and there's a separation there. We put that into play about 1.5 years ago. It's actually a carryover that I brought in from Brooklyn Park because we went through this about 7-8 years ago. We didn't have the surge back then, so it wasn't quite as big of a deal. So that we were ahead of that, and it's been helpful for us because we've been able to advertise that and share that with different community members. So just know that that's in place for you already. And I did see that link up there on the website. That link is in your material as well.
I mean, I don't know how serious the threat of loss of funding is. I mean, I think it's pretty well known that Edina, does not assist with immigration enforcement. When Edina police have contact with somebody, if they don't check on immigration status and they don't call ICE if that person doesn't appear to be legal. I mean, so that's just not anything that Edina does. So, I mean, it depends on what the federal government is trying to classify as being a sanctuary city. I mean, it's already somewhat known, it's not gonna be a big secret to them. It's a question of how far they want to try to push that.
Okay, where do we land?
I will pass on the resolution.
Okay, what about the ordinance?
Oh, that's a
The same thing. Is there any way to, I was thinking, Pete, could you find a pathway that would create some comfort for you where we tried to be positive in terms of telling what we'd like to see them do as opposed to condemning what they are doing? How we'd like to see them behave, that would take us out of that sanctuary city problem, but still send the message, this is the way you ought to be doing your job. You ought to be doing your policing in a constitutional way. You ought to go back to your old policies of not going to schools, and not hanging around churches and hanging around medical facilities, Because it's hard, I think it's just basic human nature. If someone pushes you in the shoulder, you're gonna push them back. And that's what we feel like. We wanna push back. And we've been good at pushing back people in our Okay. But, I'm just wondering if we can get to where we want to get as a council and maybe get where our residents would like to see us get by taking it up a notch, taking it up to another level. Try to take the little bit higher road than this fight.
Well, just to be clear, this resolution can be revised however you like. I mean, so, doesn't have to be this long, doesn't have to be, say these things, could say whatever you want.
But it most likely will have to come back in 2 weeks, right?
Do you want to, you guys want to think of what concepts to cover and have Dave just go to work drafting something? Because I'm not opposed to the idea of an ordinance. I mean, or even, or at least a resolution. I don't know about the ordinance.
I mean, compared to the resolution, which obviously has a lot of the whereas clauses that I think shine more to that negative, like it calls out things a little bit more. I think what this is saying, this ordinance, it talks about staging operations, that's maybe one thing. But for the most part, right, it just says like, we don't use public city resources to support it or for personal benefit or profit. Like it's not anything that I disagree with. And then it's saying, unless you have a judicial warrant, a subpoena, or other lawful authorization, which that feels accurate. We talk about reporting requirements. I think reporting requirements make sense. So I don't know, I don't think that there is anything in here that's necessarily speaking to the sanctuary city in the same way as I feel it within the ordinance.
Yes. I don't feel like B is.
Correct, thank you.
We can't, I thought we already discussed, we can't keep them out of the. You know, they sure make you want to push that.
Our concern is we lose funding potentially because of this, and I think, Member Agnew, you said you're okay with that. I think that's what you said. I am okay with that too. And I realize I'm probably not helping the situation. I'm fine with either of these. If we want to do a resolution, and if we want to do the ordinance, and you have to clean them up a little bit, I'm fine voting for both of them. What? Putting up the right sign, having the right communication, so our residents know that we're here to protect their right to assemble, right, their constitutional right. We, however we choose to, are showing up and standing alongside our residents, being in a visible way. All of that, both of these things pale in comparison to what our residents would feel if they experienced that from us.
Well, I think a lot of police departments, I don't know about Edina, I think a lot of police departments and sheriff's offices are showing up when there's demonstrations just to make sure that everyone stays safe. And, you know, like the National Guard was handing out coffee and donuts at one point, right? Like law enforcement, whenever there are demonstrations, not to actively get involved, but just to keep the peace, law enforcement has been showing up to do that. So I assume if there was a demonstration in Edina and there was the need, someone called and there was a need for it, the police would presumably show up and do that.
For me, it's a yes and.
Well, the ordinance, the way it's written, would require the police to tell ICE to leave, and I don't want to do that.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think we should have a statement, I kind of like the mayor's idea of proactively saying, law enforcement needs to follow the Constitution. ICE, immigration enforcement, and not use ICE, but immigration enforcement used to leave hospitals, places of worship, and schools alone, and we, strongly, believe that that's the right way to do it. I don't know, I know people want something that's more, militant, for lack of a better word. And, our inbox, and we've all been getting the same emails, or people are really worked up about this.
I think it's a fair point too. We don't want to get caught like the business community
Right,
being criticized for putting out something that was namby-pamby and
yeah,
it didn't say anything really.
yeah.
I get
Didn't.
that, too.
No, so it's a hard line to walk, but I don't want to, so I asked, the chief earlier to talk a little bit about, what the officers are seeing in terms of, we spend so much time building up really good relationships with, kids in trouble, underrepresented communities, and what are officers seeing in terms of their relations with the community during all this? Is there a deterioration? Is it pretty healthy? What are you hearing?
It's a mixed bag. So we had, early on, we're concerned about losing trust. We've been working on building trust right over the last couple of years in particular. Felt like the momentum was building. You have federal issues coming in, and we get put into the same bucket oftentimes, and so some of that erodes. I've heard and seen some transition where some community members in Minneapolis, because I spent some time in Minneapolis last weekend, where they were happy that Minneapolis police was on site doing some of the things that Dave Kendall just talked about. So it really has been a mixed bag of different perspectives of interaction. For us here locally, our cops are coming back and reporting things have been okay. They haven't been impacted one way or the other. Kind of status quo. I think we've done a good job on the leadership front of really trying to understand what we do, which is protect people and property and stay in that lane of travel, focusing on our residents as things have unfolded. So, yeah, that's our takeaway.
So we did, just so you know what we said in our amicus brief, to the extent you haven't looked at it closely, which it's, probably you haven't, I mean, let's be honest. So it comes out of kind of from a law enforcement perspective. It says, one of the concerns, one of the reasons we're joining in the request to curtail excessive activity by ICE is because of the concern about erosion of trust, because just in our day-to-day public safety enforcement of state laws and local ordinances, we're worried that victims and witnesses will not cooperate or will be scared to talk to the police because they may or may not understand that Edina police do not get directly involved in immigration enforcement. So that's one of the kind of arguments and perspectives in our brief, is that ICE's activities are somewhat hindering the activities of local law enforcement and eroding trust in local law enforcement. So that's why one of the reasons we joined in that brief. So you are already kind of making that argument. So you should be aware of that.
The legal side of things, I've had a call 3 days in a row from David Lullahog, who's sitting out in California worrying about all this stuff. And he said that Frederickson and Dorsey are working on a new theory for a new lawsuit based on the Posse Comitatus Act. And he wanted to know if cities would be interested in being part of that. And I said, well, we'd want to see as soon as I get a draft of the complaint, I'll send it to him. He thinks that in Illinois, they were successful when they had the National Guard there, getting them out of there based on the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act. Didn't meet the standards for that.
Yeah.
Now they're calling these agency actions as opposed to the paramilitary actions. Really more what they are is paramilitary actions. So if they can wedge it under the Posse Comitatus Act, the best I could understand was that they think they're going to getting them out of here.
The president has threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act. He's not done so in Minnesota yet. If he did, obviously that would be a different ballgame. And there'd be a whole new set of legal arguments and Posse Comitatus arguments about that. I mean, luckily, as far as I can tell from reading the news, it seems to be going in the opposite direction, and they withdrew 700 ICE agents today or yesterday. So.
What about the next one, the eviction moratorium? Specifically writing a letter, kind of mimicking what Roseville wrote, asking the governor to consider imposing an eviction moratorium. I don't know, MJ, if you had any more learnings to.
Yeah, so we talked about a little bit at the task force, and where our efforts actually went to was rental assistance. So there are some, resolutions and letters to the governor already drafted, but they're really inclusive of the rental assistance. So one's about eviction moratorium, and coupling with the rental assistance, and one is just about rental assistance. What we've been finding out is that we still have, property managers, developers that are still recovering from COVID days, and that it makes it hardship, to basically keep, right, the livelihood of the building. The deferred maintenance happens, and then it causes a safety issue. They can't actually evict people when they really do need to evict people. People that can actually pay their rent just still decide not to pay. So there's just I have a whole list of here's some of the risks of doing an eviction moratorium. Stephanie Hawkinson did call me today because she was on a call with similar type people in her field, and they all had that same resounding sentiment that it's not necessarily the best, most efficient way to go about this, yeah.
But you said you drafted one, then that is more towards
There's one that is eviction moratorium that couples with rental assistance, because really it's like a short-term, eviction moratorium, but really to focus on rental assistance, and one is purely rental assistance. So there are two that were drafted.
Okay.
And Scott does have those.
Are you, is the task force more supportive of the one that's specific to just rental assistance?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
And there's a link on the page if you scroll down.
Yeah, there is, in the community
I'm sorry, but
resources.
I think it's important for people to know what we're
for sure.
doing.
We're doing as much as we can to provide resources that after they get vetted through here, things move pretty fast for us. And we're working with BEEP, we're trying to figure out what their needs are to see what we can help them with. Obviously, our LAHA funds are spent. You guys are probably gonna hear about the city of Bloomington approving $350,000. That was their LAHA from 25. So Stephanie has plans of bringing forward some proactive, we're gonna hold, when we get this money, we're gonna right away use it for the purposes of rental assistance, as long as you guys approve it as a HRA.
So is there any action that you would need for us to take on the letter for the rental assistance?
You could authorize staff to prepare a letter for you to sign that's based on the Roseville letter, which is an advocating for moratorium, eviction moratorium.
Or if you only want us to bring you a letter
One or the
to
other.
do rental assistance.
Rental assistance.
Yeah.
Because we do have some right, you guys are approving the legislative platform, and there's been some information added there as well. So by that process, you're also approving the support for this. Should we do that? So, okay, so I'm hearing you bring forward a letter for rental assistance.
Hearing what?
Yeah.
Yeah, letter for, rental assistance.
Do you have that for tonight?
I was thinking about something
We
else.
could have it for,
I have it.
we could have it for tonight, later in the meeting.
Have what?
A letter to the governor from the council.
Saying what?
Saying that you want them to consider at the state level, an eviction moratorium.
No,
and just the rental assistance.
Just the rental
Rental
assistance.
assistance.
I wouldn't be in favor of an eviction moratorium.
Then no, we won't do that. But we've got one that just has rental assistance.
Yeah, rental assistance and food security program.
And is it asking for more money? What is the ask?
So the ask is that they would, look into providing some funding specific to that, either to the local level or to other organizations that have the authority to provide that type of service. So programs like VEEP that are already in place, vetting those individuals.
So it's asking for more money.
Yes.
To be routed to those
Specifically
programs.
for that purpose, Yep,
But this would be for anybody who qualifies for the program, right?
correct.
Wouldn't be any change to the program guidelines.
Nope, we're just saying.
Existing programs, more money.
More money.
Would you support
Look at that.
just the
That's
rental
important, I
assistance?
think.
I said to Dave.
Have you read for the letter to the governor?
Yeah, you're good with that, if it's just the rental
In the form that we
assistance?
talked
Yeah.
about addressing, the moratorium.
Not the moratorium.
I'm interested in rental assistance and food security.
Perfect, yep.
So what I did here was I chopped this down, so it starts with dealing with homeland security.
Does the letter
Okay.
include food security?
It does not, so we would have to make an adjustment really quick. There's nothing related to food security in those. Okay.
I mean, it says we'd be using, like, using those organizations as pass-through, so like, those organizations.
We do it internally.
However they would.
Okay,
It's just
Okay.
rent, not food security.
oh, yeah, so rent's fine. Doesn't seem like a food for them,
All right.
too.
9 minutes with no break to council. Flock cameras. I'm actually just gonna turn this over to Ryan, but essentially we talked about this. We did not, as a task force, recommend the pause of them, and Ryan can give some context around that.
I will do it as quick as possible and leave some room for some questions there. Flock has been all over the news nationally and now locally around some of the sharing of their data with ICE. I want to assure everyone, we have never shared our Edina data with anyone outside of Edina since we implemented it. Agencies poorly set up their settings within the back end that whether they knew or didn't know, they were sharing their data with other state and national lookups, other agencies. Ours is locked down to our police department only. Our police officers are the only ones that can access it. They have to have a criminal reason, investigating a criminal crime. They can't use it for any ICE-related activities. And it's all tracked, audited. There's some really good features in there. Attorney Kendall's looked over our agreement to make sure there's not some loophole that Flock is sharing our data. We've run internal audits to show that no one else has got the data or anything like that.
Like they haven't been hacked?
Correct. And they just followed up again that they have their cloud data with their security standards, their CGIS data, and everything else. What we're seeing on a lot of the articles, the national and the local, is departments, when they purchased it, maybe didn't look at all the settings correctly. Maybe hit a button that said allow sharing with everyone or certain departments. That allowed the sharing out there. We were very mindful when we set ours up several years ago, not thinking of ICE, but just thinking of other agencies that why would they need to see what's going on in our city? If there's a major crime somewhere, they can call us, provide their report number or search warrant, and then we would provide it. So, that's the other half. Chief has some on the crime reduction stuff, or if there's any questions.
Got more on Flock too, I told the chief that I talked to the Flock reps at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and, you know, they were getting this question too from other people, other cities, and they say there's no way they're sharing any information with ICE, unless ICE is hacking them.
Yeah.
And I know they got very nice, let's get the technology out there.
Right, yeah, that's right.
Real briefly, just it's a real beneficial tool for us. We've been at it now for a couple of years. Lots of success stories, lots of recovered stolens. We're preventing a lot of other thefts. Auto thefts have been a real big thing for us, right, the last couple of years. It's a deterrent, but it also prevents future auto thefts from happening. I'll spare you the list of things. It also helps Richfield just solve a homicide case because the suspect was captured on their LPR system as he fled the scene on a recent domestic case, right? So it gets us into the high profile stuff. We're very confident in it. I'm not at all concerned about it. Ryan was the one on the front end that figured that out for us, saved us on that. But we have really talented staff that'll ensure that we're not gonna have a breach of data.
Yeah, and a really tight data retention policy too, if I remember correctly.
Yep, 30 days, and we've had it locked down since we started with it. So I think it's pretty safe on our end, but I don't know if you had something to add on.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would add is if maybe it's partially speculation on my part, but really not, because I've read some newspaper articles on it, so, and the feds have admitted it, like, they have their own databases and data gathering materials, so they don't really need to use local data. They've got their own license plate readers, they've got their own facial recognition, so.
And then one thing the task force, we recognize the pressure and the response that we get from people not understanding how Flock works. That is part of our communication plan out. The chief filmed a video about LPRs today, yesterday. So part of our campaign and our communication campaign is to push out to the residents what it is and what it isn't, and share the the security part, that we take that serious and we don't share our data with them or anyone else, so.
Yeah, and I'll just acknowledge, I think that that's part of the fear, but I think the other fear is here when so much of what we're observing is skirting, what should be legal. The question is, what if they're taking illegal methods to access that data? So that's why I was like pushing on the point of how confident are we in the security of the data? I trust that we will not give it, and I trust that we have it locked down to as much as we can. But I think we're even seeing some reports of, you know, what was meant to be encrypted communications via signal also being accessible potentially by federal government. So I think that's where the fear comes from.
So the only thing I'll add, we're both in the technology area. So I'll say, I'm not sure that it's secure. But why am I saying that?
And that's where we're hoping on our communication out, that we'll be able to share that. Because internally we have our controls, but we've also verified their certificates, their CGIS compliance, their Fed, something, their certifications, their Amazon.gov cloud.
So I was being a little facetious.
Yeah.
You have to have demonstrated evidence that suggests that it's secure. And so we can keep saying it's secure, trust us, it's secure, it's secure. But to remember Agnew's point, people are nervous about it. So the only way to transfer that trust is to show demonstrated evidence of why we believe it's secure.
And we did an internal audit to verify and confirm, and part of that messaging I taped this morning. I've got a queue of different messages that cover a little bit of that, and we'll continue to do that too.
Yeah, that's it.
Do we want to say that tonight during staff comments? So who's working at the dice tonight?
We have another commander there,
Okay.
but we can talk to him about that too.
Yeah, if he could say that, just, you can't repeat it often enough.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
If I could double down just on the point earlier, that we made. It has been weeks. It's not true that we've not done anything. Right? So we can't do anything about the perception that people have. But I would love for us to be able to take action quickly on the things that we talked about. That's it. And there will be other things that we do. But to just start that process as quickly as we can.
One last request, and maybe it's in our Friday reports or something, can we start to get more of this data too? Both on the 911 calls, as well as, you know, do we have residents that have been taken into custody, and what does that, like, what do those numbers look like? I think that would help us in understanding the landscape.
Okay, can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, did you craft this? Is this on your computer system or is it MJ's or who's this?
Is this the resolution?
The resolution.
That was you.
Yeah, I drafted that.
Okay, so we've marked it up down at this end.
Okay.
Really hasn't seen the markup, but.
Okay,
I'll give it to you.
sure. So
And
you
we
want
would
me
like
to,
to have a draft.
And the idea
ready to
is that
approve.
2 weeks from now we'd have a draft or?
Oh, tonight.
Tonight? Can we get a draft tonight?
yeah, I mean, I can email it to staff and they can print it off, or I can somehow connect to your printer, either
They're
way.
easy updates.
Well, you could scan this and send it.
You can hand me that hard copy and then I'll revise it and email it to staff.
Stand adjourned.